Another quick tie. Your next fly starts here.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another quick tie. My name is Tim Hepworth here with Fly Fishing Bover Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying. And we have got a special fly for you tonight, the Cinnamon Toast Ant. Super fun pattern, not too difficult to tie, and effective. What could be better than all of those things put together? We do want to give a shout out to Western Canada Fly Fishing Guide School for sponsoring this quick tie tonight. If you ever want some more information about the school itself or any information regarding it, don't hesitate to head over to our website, or you can always reach out to us and we'd be happy to chat with you about it. Tonight, I'm going to be tying out of my Season 7 kit, Episode 12. Just like this, if you don't already have one of these guys, you can still head over to our website and get one. And don't worry, all of these videos from the whole season will be uploaded to YouTube, and some already are, and the last couple will be soon. And all you gotta do is follow the QR code straight to each video, and you can tie along all the patterns that are here in the kit. If you aren't tying out of the Season 7 kit, you have the individual kit. Materials are gonna look identical, a little different packaging, but it works just the same. And if you don't have any of our kits, that's fine as well. Just head over to our website. You're gonna find a full fly recipe for this pattern, and just go grab some materials out of your own stuff, and we can get to this one no problem. All right, guys, let's head over and take a peek at this fly. The Cinnamon Toast Ant. It is a cinnamon in color ant. We're gonna use some foam, we're gonna use some hackle, a little bit of Zelon or Antron yarn, and that's about it. Little dubbing. It's not super complicated, but a really effective and fun fly. And you'll notice it's tied on a little untraditional hook. This is more of a caddis pupa style hook, but what that does is it allows it to ride a little different in the water, and it gives a little different appearance from your ordinary ant that you might have tied before. So it's very, very fun, and I hope you like it. Let's pop this one out of the vise, and we'll head on by getting our next hook placed in the vise. You do want to place it in a way that it gives you some access down into the bend of the hook, as we are going to be using it down a little ways into the bend. So what I'm going to do is tie in the initial materials, and I'm going to adjust my hook so I have a little bit different angle. But we're going to start off with it with the eye tipped down slightly. That's going to allow us to get back into the bend of the hook a little bit. Now, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to grab my UTC 70 in black. Now, I know we've talked about this before, but normally we go thicker with thread when we're using foam, but it's tough to do on such a small fly. It takes up too much space. So we do want to try to go ahead and use a smaller thread, and just be careful not to cut through the foam with too heavy of a thread wrap. Now I'm going to start this thread just behind the eye, and I'm going to work a nice base all the way back till I trim out that tag end. And then I'm going to continue taking some thread wraps back into the edge of that bend a little ways. You'll see I kind of come about a quarter of the way down the bend, and then I'm going to bring it back forward. So when it's hanging, it's somewhere between the point of the hook and the barb itself. We're going to go to our foam first. So we've got some of this nice tan colored foam. You can see I've trimmed this one down slightly, and the only reason I've trimmed it down is to match the hook gap on the hook. You want to be hook gap width or just under. You don't want it to be too wide, otherwise all we'll have on this is foam, and you're not going to get a good look at that dubbing we're going to put in underneath. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim just a small little bit off the corners of the foam. This just aids in the tying in of this foam, and I'm going to start tying it in, like I said, roughly right where I left my thread there. I'm going to get my first wrap, allowing it to carry, allows that to carry that foam up on top of the hook shank. And then I'm just using a couple of good wraps into that bend to secure it, and so it doesn't spin. And then I want to come back over top and compress that foam down, making a smooth ramp going forward. And I'll bring it back up again. I'll check, make sure, yeah, that came down. You want to be about, like I said, a quarter of the way down the bend of the hook. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cover up some of this thread and this underbody with some super fine dubbing. We're going to be using this nice kind of rusty brown color. So go ahead and grab yourself a little pinch off. It isn't going to take much. You could probably do about 100 of these flies out of that bunch of dubbing we gave you there. And we're going to make a dubbing noodle. So if you see the original pattern, the whole underside of it is done with dubbing, okay? All the way up to the eye, but we can't go all the way to start with. We're going to go up about roughly halfway to a little over halfway up the hook is where we're going to do our first tie off of the foam, and then we're going to keep the foam tied in. Don't cut it out, as we're going to need to use it again for the front portion of the fly. So we're going to make that dubbing noodle. Again, spin that thread or that dubbing on your thread in one single direction. Don't go back and forth with your fingers. That'll just continually put it on and take it off. I'm going to put down maybe 1.5 inches worth of dubbing noodle. You can always take some off or add some if you need to. I'm going to start those wraps right at the back there with the foam and just start taking these forward. I want to make sure I kind of have an even amount of dubbing on the underbody. I don't want it to be larger or smaller in any portion. And I'm going to leave that right there. That's as far as I want to go forward for this rear portion of the fly, as we need room for the head as well as hackle in between. Now, first thing we're going to do here is we're going to pull that foam up and over. Okay. I'm going to take my bobbin and make sure I take a thread wrap directly across that foam. And I'm just going to let my bobbin hang. This is a good time to take a look from above and make sure that that wrap looks nice and straight. And now I'm going to pinch on the back foam here with my fingers. And I'm going to pull down slightly and then take another wrap, add a little more tension. This is where we got to be careful not to cut through that foam. And then I can take a few thread wraps kind of angling forward up the foam a little ways, just to make sure that that's good and secure. And this is where we should be right now. You can see the nice rounded top. We got that dubbing showing through on the bottom. Now, reason I said not to cut that foam out is we still need to build the head out of the foam. And the easiest way to do that is to actually leave the foam tied in. I'm going to take some thread wraps moving forward, heading towards the eye. I'm going to continually check and make sure that I haven't passed the eye or get too close to it. You want to leave yourself a little bit of room to tie and whip finish or half hitch at the front. So once I've got some thread wraps forward to just behind the eye, I'm now just going to compress that foam down. Make sure that foam is nice and centered. I'm still kind of holding it because it has a tendency of wanting to spin and move on you. Should be left with something that looks like this. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to head on over to our antron. It's white antron here. I'm going to cut myself about 1 inch off, which will be way more than we need. But just for ease of tying in, if you got any little danglies out the end, just trim it flat. You can see, you can kind of check it right away. That does look like a little bit too much, so I'm going to take just a little bit, peel just a little bit of that out of there. Take maybe like 1/4 out of it, and I just use it in my fingers and I roll it back together like so. I'm going to trim that one more time to make sure it's all flat. And then I'm going to tie this in right here. Get a good gathering wrap. I am just going to spin my bobbin clockwise so it jumps forward and grabs that. I can pull back on that material a bit, gets back near the tie-in point. I get that tied in nicely. Now we can trim that right now, or we can wait. We'll do it here in a second. Not the end of the world. And I'm going to take my thread right back up front, the front portion of this foam. Now we're going to build the head and the size of the head, and it doesn't need to be super big. We're going to fill in the middle gap with our hackle, but I basically am judging by pulling back on this and wanting to make a nice little dome shaped head on this guy, something that in the end is going to look similar to that. So I'm going to advance my thread about an eye length forward. And this is where I'm going to pull my foam back over top. And I'm pulling a little bit of tension on it. And I'm getting the head shape formed with that thread wrap. You can, before you pull tight, you can see how big the head's going to be, which looks like a good size at the moment. And then just increase tension until we form that head. Okay, now we can get rid of the foam at this point. As long as it's good and secure, we can trim that out, and then we'll work thread wraps down into the butt end of it. But do try to trim it as close as you can. I'm even gonna come in here and take off the corners of it. Just try not to make too much extra bulk. Right down close here. And then I'm just gonna take thread wraps to secure that down as tight as I can. Just be careful not to allow that head to twist on you. So if it wants to try to twist away, just twist it back. Make sure that all the foam is aligned. We should be left with something that looks like this. And now I'm gonna come back up against my antron. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my hackle feather. We got this nice kind of auburn brown color. And what I want to do is come down to the butt end that I have here. I'm going to just strip off a few at the very bottom from both sides. And then I'm going to pull up again on it so you can see right there I've got a few of the barbs still showing. And I'm going to trim this and I'll show you what I did. And this just aids with the tying in. I'm going to cut just a little bit up each side of the barbs. Now if you see it there, I've left myself a few barbs that have been trimmed off, and that just allows for the tie-in point to stay a little more secure. Now what I'm going to do is take the underside of the feather, I'm going to point it back down the fly. So on this feather it's easy because one side is light in color, the top side is dark in color, and I'm going to tie that in right there. I'm just going to secure down all the way to just in front by the eye. Now this is when I'm going to take and reorient my hook a little bit so it looks like the eye is more level than the rear part of the body, and that's just going to make it easier for whip finishing, as well as just orienting your hackle as we do this. Now all we're going to do is we're going to start wrapping rearward. We're going to add in as much as we want here, but a little trick that can help with this is you can add some dubbing at this point, but very, very little. We want to do just enough to cover up the thread. Maybe not even quite that much. I'll bring my thread back to where I had securely tied that off, but I'm just going to put just a wisp on here. And this is just going to help that hackle grab into something because we have quite the bulky little piece of thread there that we formed up by tying down that foam. And then I'm just going to take this forward, just making a little bit of dubbing layer on there, just like that. And now I'm going to take my hackle and start doing nice wraps rearward, kind of touching wraps if you can. Try to evenly space them the best you can as well. I'm going to take this all the way up to just behind that head we formed. And when we get to the head, we want to make sure we do one full wrap right at the head. That gives us perfect coverage. And then again, as always with materials, we got to take a thread wrap behind first before we go in front. If you're trapping a few fibers, don't get too stressed about that. We'll clean those up. I take another thread wrap behind. I like to do it twice just to make sure everything is good and secure. Pull them rearward. Get my thread wrap in right there. Now we can go ahead, once you know that's good and secure, we can trim out the tag end of that hackle. Try not to cut too many other fibers there. And then I'm just gonna whip finish this right where it is, and then I'll clean up that little bit of hackle that's straight out on its own. Just trying not to get too much of it stuck with your whip finish. I'm not gonna go crazy with my whip finish either, as I am gonna put some resin on here. I'm just gonna slide that knot in there. Pull it tight, make sure it's good and tight, not gonna move when I cut this out. Trim that out. And then I'm just gonna clean up any little bits of hackle that are pointed forward or out of sync from everything else. But just cut the ones that are way up by the head. I wouldn't worry about any of the other ones because they just look like they form into the fly quite nicely. I am gonna put just a small drop of some Bone Dry by Solarez UV resin right, trying just to touch the thread wraps through that hackle. And I'll cure that with the light. We'll trim out our wing and we are pretty much done this fly. Now when I cut this wing, how I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna leave it or pull it back down the fly, and just behind the butt, I'm gonna trim right there. And that should spring it up a little bit. And there we have it, guys. There is our cinnamon toast ant. Very nice, high floating for a small little fly. Lots of hackles is gonna help with that as well as that foam. But yeah, cinnamon toast. This is definitely one you wanna keep in your box at all times. I wouldn't mess with it at all, just leave it as is, because that is a good bug. All right, guys, don't forget, if you like this video, if you enjoyed it, if you found it useful, drop us a comment, let us know, hit that little bell icon. Anytime we have a new video come out, it's gonna come right to you and you're gonna find out about it. And yeah, just let us know how it went. If you're part of the replay squad and you're using these quick ties to get through your kits, let us know. We love to hear that stuff. And yeah, it's great. Okay, until next week, we'll bring you another fly. Have a great week.